Hello, 10th grade. I miss you all still. Good to see you. I hope that these videos are encouraging as well as helpful to you all, not just practical, but that there's little bits of hope that I can share in some of the things that I've been able to share with you all. Anyway, I want to go ahead and share my screen, give you guys just the work for today and things to think about with the Great Gatsby. So I'll go ahead and I'll put this PowerPoint up on the LMS page as well so that you can access that. So today's work, just keep up with your reading schedules and the discussion post. So answer with 2 responses due tomorrow and with your worldview paper as well that's due May 6th. All right, so with the Roaring Twenties and the Great Gatsby, so you had one PowerPoint to look through that had things about the author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the Great Gatsby, some of the things in the story. And so you do make sure that you look at that. But there's a few other things that I want to go over with you all. So one, the Roaring Twenties, this gives you a little bit of historical context. So it was coined the Jazz Age by Fitzgerald. And this was a time in which the economy soared. There was a lot of optimism, a lot of extravagant living, and unrestrained materialism. They were coming out of World War One. Of course, they didn't know that the Great Depression and World War II was next, just around the corner. This is also, a lot of movies like Breakfast at Tiffany's or Downton Abbey, things like that. Those are set during the 20s. Obviously, different countries and things like that. But this was a time when it was very much about consumerism, so a compulsion to spend money, and we see that with our characters. For example, Mrs. Wilson, when you see her and Tom sneak off together, Nick observes that she needs to do some shopping, and it's to buy all of these frivolous things, and not so much because she wants them, but because it shows a bit of a status for her. Both Tom and Gatsby are wanting Daisy to see their wealth and their riches, and you'll continue to see that throughout the book. This was also a time, you probably already know this from history, but there was a ban on alcohol with prohibition. But at the same time, we see a lot of people drinking to excess. And so you see that at these parties, these extravagant parties, and you would see this in movies that are set during the 20s. Al Capone, that's when you have your gangsters and the rise of organized crime in that. And women assert a new independence. It's where you see the flappers, where they've got the bobbed hair and the long cigarette and the black dress and everything. So they rejected the social and moral norms of the time to try to say that they were more independent and really, honestly, more sexually independent. Okay. So The Great Gatsby, specifically, this is where we see Fitzgerald kind of cutting through all of the glitter of the Jazz Age and showing the emptiness. You could probably read the book of Ecclesiastes right alongside the story of the Great Gatsby and see some parallels thematically. Okay, I'm not saying he's writing it like Ecclesiastes or anything like that, but I think King Solomon could definitely identify with this. I have all of the wealth and the women in the world, and yet my life is still empty. And then there's also a great emphasis on hypocrisy. So that ties into our theme of appearances and observations and focus on eyes in the story. The Great Gatsby reflects the failure of the American dream for all characters. It's empty, it doesn't work. So if you've heard of the play Death of a Salesman, kind of a similar thing in that the American dream of having, all of the money and position and power, it's not going to work. It doesn't satisfy you. And the wealthy, even though they continue to indulge, it's almost like they have this apathetic way of living because they're not fulfilled. So a couple of characters just to keep kind of straight in your mind. So Nick Carraway, he's the narrator, but he's not really the main character, is he? It's Gatsby. He's the new neighbor to Gatsby, so he's able to give us that perspective, that view. Tom Buchanan is one of his friends, really his cousin-in-law, cousin by marriage. And Tom Buchanan, he lives across the bay with his wife. So remember, there's East Egg and West Egg, and there's a map in your other PowerPoint of that. And so he's very proud, very harsh. You've probably noticed he's extremely arrogant and bossy. And he does have some you know, white supremacy ideas. And he has a mistress named Mrs. Wilson. Now, he expects his wife to toe the line on being faithful, but he can have a mistress off to the side. This mistress is a lady who's also married. Um, Daisy Buchanan is married to Tom, and she has an affair with Gatsby. She knew him when she was younger, as is revealed in these next few chapters, and she's a cousin of Nick. Daisy is often described, her eyes are described a lot, but she's described in very musical language. Some of you all may have noticed that. Jordan Baker is her friend. She is more athletic, but still a very attractive and flirtatious woman. She's a friend of Daisy, and she becomes kind of Nick's girl to some extent. Daisy wants to kind of pair them together, and they do go on some dates and spend some time together. Jay Gatsby, he's the next door neighbor, kind of the main character. He's this mysterious, rich, magnetic personality that lives next door to Nick and across the bay from Daisy. And people come, invited and uninvited, to the extravagant parties at his house. And there's all of this talk, these rumors about who is he? How did he get his money? Why is he so important? They just can't seem to shake him. Mrs. Wilson, again, is the lady who is having an affair with Tom Buchanan. She's married to a car mechanic named George, and they actually live above his on a mechanic shop. And she gets her nose broken. That's probably a memorable thing about her. She gets her nose broken for repeating Daisy's name after she's gotten drunk during one of her parties with Tom and some friends at an apartment that she and Tom have separately from the people they're married to. So, yeah. So we see a lot of people just running on emotion, acting on emotion. Right. And then Mr. Wolfsheim. So he was the Jewish man in his 50s that met with Gatsby and Nick at the restaurant. And we know that there's some kind of connection between him and Gatsby and some of maybe the deals that he does on the side. There's some kind of shady talk that makes Nick uncomfortable. He's said to have fixed the 1919 World Series. He's a gambler, and he has human molars for cufflinks. So that's kind of an unnerving thing about him. He's kind of this gruff old man who also makes Nick uncomfortable. Right. So I wanted to share with you just a few things on The Great Gatsby today while you're working on your papers, and I will continue to pop in, and you pop in to me and ask any questions that you have. Today, I actually don't have a senior thesis presentation to watch, so if definitely I should be even more available than normal. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Also, before I go, I want to share with you, if you've got a minute, a bit from The Weight of Glory that really ties in with The Great Gatsby. It's just a short paragraph. So in The Weight of Glory, which I read to you all right at the mock trial, not the whole thing, but I read part of it about you've never talked to a mere mortal. This is a part at the beginning, and I think it really captures that 1920s longing from a biblical perspective. It says, indeed, if we consider the unblushing promises of reward and the staggering nature of the rewards promised in the Gospels, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in the slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. All right. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.